Tim, how you doing, brother?
Doing well. How about you?
I can't complain, man. You, you
Yeah.
always changing your backgrounds on me, man. I want to be in the office suite.
Gotta
No,
I gotta make it look like I'm all over the place,
yeah, we're back to the pillows. It's great.
Yeah, somebody told me I needed to work on my office, so I'm yeah, we're gonna shelf that
I
one for
think
a
I
little
think that
while.
works the home office, man. So
Yeah, yeah.
yeah. So Tim, what is your background in and with real estate? How'd you get started? Where did it all start from?
So I've always had an interest in real estate. I used to joke with I used to joke with my mom that had she purchased a property earlier on where my brothers and I went to school, she could have had that thing paid off, by the time I graduated. And she never did, but she ended up paying for the three of us ended up paying a lot of rent at the same school for a long period of time. So even coming out of school, I've always had an interest in real estate. And then I got together with a group of kind of like-minded guys in say 2006, and we started to look at some places to get involved with real estate. And where we ended up was in kind of land speculation, if you will. We were partnering with developers in 2006, 2007, helping them get capital and bringing capital to them for properties. A lot of times they were leveraging our ability to procure loans, get lending, to put infrastructure in on properties they were developing. And that actually went really well for a few years. We did well with that. We got really aggressive, started reinvesting everything we earned into those properties or into more properties. And as I like to tell a few people, that went really well until it didn't. 2008, 2009 hit, and we learned a pretty valuable lesson really quickly. And that is, things go well, but when you only have one exit strategy, you can get caught pretty quick, and we got caught. So when our developers no longer could develop or sell properties, we were stuck with land, say in the middle of a mountain in North Carolina somewhere with no road access to that land.
Ooh,
Um,
that was
yeah,
a
so
challenge.
all of a sudden, these properties that were being valued by the banks for $250 to $500,000, they were worth $20,000, and we still had loans on those properties. So as you can imagine, that was a pretty painful period. Um, it took a little while to clean up from that. Learned some valuable lessons about exit strategies and things like that. And then I guess around 2012, started to dip my toe back into real estate again. Started to look at some fix and flips, was starting to acquire some rental properties. And then 2017 or so, decided that doesn't scale very quickly or very well. So I exited that, started to look for other places to get into real estate, and that's led me to multifamily. Through a number of through a bunch of research and a lot of reading and listening to podcasts, learned as much as I could about the multifamily space, and then reached out, and here I am today. Mike, you working with you, um, exactly in the multifamily space.
That's amazing. Now you already talked about some of the lessons learned. That was going to be my next question. Is some of the lessons you learned along the way. Uh, Net one, I'm hearing exit strategy. Need to have multiple exit strategies, or the A, B, and C plan, right? Uh, but before I get into that, I really want to learn the lesson of how were you able to come back from that, like mentally? Like what made you push through that, and how'd you get out of that situation?
A couple of ways. One of the ways that we got out of it, and I hate to say get out of it in that sense, just because there was leverage on the properties, right? Um, so obviously the banks came knocking, and we had to work with the banks. We had to work with the lenders. In some cases, the lenders were not interested in working with us at all. So we, we lost properties. We had to go through the process of turning them over to the banks. I never personally ended up having to go through foreclosure because the bank never foreclosed. They just forgave the debt. But I will tell you, the hit I took on that was on the my taxes the next year. I had to claim every bit of that forgiven debt on my income taxes. So that was a hard hit. That's one of the ways that I got out of it.
No.
Is
I know that hit.
I paid the
I did
paid
that one.
I paid
I did that one.
I paid the government a pretty hefty sum one year.
Now it's funny that you mentioned that. Now you may not know that, but in the future and now, because we're about to go into something similar to this again, when these people that you work or we find deals, you actually can show them, or at least we can reference them to an accountant that could help them with the taxes. You can actually offset that because they send a 1099, which is really not any income gained. But I myself, when I was getting foreclosed on, was able to write all those things off. I forgot exactly the term, but because it wasn't real money. And so we could show how we had the loss as well. So
and I was able to offset some of that through what you're talking about. But that's where the accountant, like you're saying, really comes in big, especially from the start. If I had never engaged an accountant until after the fact, it would have been difficult. But because I'd been working with an accountant all along, he was able to talk to me about things to do up front to kind of shelter myself or protect myself. And one of his big lessons very early on was don't commingle, right? He's like, keep your personal, keep your business. And if you're married and you make sure you don't involve your wife, right? Which was one of the big lessons there. So, that one of the things he had me do very early on was business credit card versus personal credit card, business accounts versus personal accounts. So when it came down to it, we were able to show that, hey, this was all in my name, not my, family estate or anything like that. And then we were able to show, what my net worth was versus, my family's net worth. So we were able to offset some of that by showing that, hey, this is what his net worth is. This is what he's actually made this year. And because I didn't make enough to cover that, they were able to offset some of those taxes. So I don't know if that explains it, but yeah, that's kind of what you're talking about.
Definitely. And not only did you use that lesson, I'm sure, for this real estate, but from what I understand, you parlayed that into successful clothing merchandise as well. Is that correct?
Yeah. So I got out of the real estate thing for a little while, and I think one of the reasons I was able to show not a lot of income there for a little while was because I started up another business. I started up a retail clothing business that catered towards the CrossFit space. I had a connection in the CrossFit space at the time. A lot of folks in that area really enjoy custom clothing. So I started up a business in that space. It actually pivoted more towards custom clothing and ended up selling that off around 2016 and exiting out of that. So that was actually a successful exit.
And I bet you kept that separate.
Yeah, definitely kept that separate for sure.
Yeah. So what part of the real estate process do you find most interesting? What do you like most about
it? Honestly, the piece I like the most is kind of digging for deals. I like to try to find. I'm a kind of a numbers guy. I enjoy the analytics part of it. I like trying to dig under the covers to see how something might make sense. And honestly, you find a lot of things that don't. But there's more than one way to structure a deal, as Mike, as you know. And I enjoy trying to figure out, okay, I've got these four pieces. How can I put them together to make something that makes sense? And a lot of times they don't fit, but when they do, it's kind of fun and exciting. So I enjoy that. I enjoy networking with, sellers, brokers, owners to find things. And I enjoy getting out there, kind of boots on the ground and scoping out the properties. That's one thing I really focus on here in North and South Carolina. If I'm within a couple of hours drive, I'm going to drive there pretty quickly and check it out.
So you love the game, you love the process, man. That's beast mode, man. Everybody, most people they hate running, but they love that they ran. And as they say, and it's the process that you got to fall in love with. But yeah, no, I'm with you. I love the chase. I love building up to it, and then the closing. Once we get to the closing, I'm like, what do we do next?
Yeah, it's funny that you mentioned that. People like that they ran, but they don't like to run. I have a kind of a long background in triathlon and endurance sports, and I, like you're talking about, the training, the actual race, I love it, but I always find myself when I would go across the finish line, it's like, well, that's it. What next? So kind of the same thing.
Yeah. Now, the Carolinas. I mean, you've been bringing over quite some nice deals. How do you develop the knowledge of the markets there? And you're in a hot market. That's what, like, everybody's kind of, for the longest, everybody was in, East Coast, West Coast, then Midwest. Now it's this kind of transient move, exodus to the Carolinas. So how'd you
Yeah,
develop that?
yeah. So like you said, North Carolina, South Carolina has become really hot. And it's been a gradual thing here in the Carolinas. We have a thing we call half-backers. And we get a lot of Northeastern people who say, hey, I want to retire, move down to Florida. They move down to Florida. They're like, man, it's hot and humid down here. So they come halfway back and they end up in North and South Carolina. So it's a term.
And what do you call those again?
They're half-backers. They go halfway back. So you see some of that, and then we're starting to see a lot more of people just looking at the Carolinas region as somewhere they want to end up. We get a lot, the North and South Carolina. We get a lot of people that come and vacation at the beaches here, and when they drive through the state on their way to the beaches, they're like, "Hey, this is a place that looks pretty interesting. Maybe we want to move here sometime." But me myself, I would say that my knowledge of the Carolinas has come from, I've lived here my whole life. And I've traveled around. I travel quite a bit outside of the Carolinas, but I spent a lot of time growing up traveling around the Carolinas. And I'm kind of one of those that when I'm driving around, I'm always paying attention to what's around me. And I think just over the 45 years of living here, I've developed a pretty good understanding of where the hot spots are in the state, where the what towns are thriving, which ones are failing. And I just pay attention to that kind of stuff. It's always kind of been an interest of mine and just something I've always just kind of innately done. And then, over the years, I've moved around to different areas. I grew up in the Sandhills around Pinehurst, lived in Raleigh for 9 years, lived in the Winston-Salem area for a couple of years, and now I've been in the Charlotte area for almost 20. So it's just something that's kind of come over the years. Yeah.
Yeah, no, man, you really know the market, and moving around makes it a lot easier. So how do you identify new markets to focus on? Like what pushes you to focus on this market or this area? How do you come up with that?
So when I started getting into real estate, I wanted to focus on the Carolinas, but I wanted to know which areas of the Carolinas I should be focused on. So I started to do some research, and one of the things I noticed with that was that there tended to be like specific groups that moved to the area. And then, so I started to dig into that a little more and say, hey, but what's the biggest concentration within these groups? And one of the things I noticed was, maybe this is common sense to most people, but baby boomers and millennials, they're kind of the driving forces. And, it turns out those are two of the largest generations ever in the United States.
Yeah.
And they're kind of coming to a unique crossroads at the same time. Baby boomers are retiring, millennials are becoming adults, and they're starting to transition into housing. And what I noticed in the Carolinas was that those two were kind of the big drivers here. We got people retiring to the Carolinas, and then we have baby boomers millennials moving to the Carolinas. So I started using that strategy to identify other markets. So I started looking at Sunbelt states where those two generations were moving to or targeting, and that started to lead me to places like Des Moines, Iowa, to Memphis, Tennessee, two of the big ones there, and actually spots in Alabama. Alabama is a big target for millennials.
Now we talk about markets, and lately I've been getting calls for Des Moines, Iowa. Is that, yeah? What's going on over there? Why people?
I think
what's happening?
Well, I think a lot of it's jobs, and then I think it's kind of quality of life. They have a pretty active downtown area. They got a vibrant scene going on there. They got sports, restaurants, and then jobs. In technology, I've had a long career in technology as well. In technology, we have a term called nearshoring. So there's offshoring and nearshoring. Offshore is where, in the United States, we send jobs to places like India or the Philippines. Nearshoring is where we send jobs within the United States to lower cost areas.
Right.
And at one point in time, Des Moines was one of those areas. It was a highly educated market that did not have the same pay rates as, say, San Francisco or RDU in North Carolina,
Mm-hmm.
or the Northeast. So companies started to move tech centers to Des Moines. And then the insurance industry is big there. So there's a lot of jobs. There's a vibrant downtown scene, and it has a lot to offer, millennials, for one. And that's one of the big drivers there.
Okay. Now, and you keep talking about millennials and baby boomers. I mean, I kind of know why, but for our listeners, why focus on the millennials and baby boomers?
So millennials, they're kind of two different reasons, ending up in the same place for different reasons. Millennials are, they're coming out of college more in debt, right? So because they're more in debt, they're not as quick to transition into home ownership. So they're renting longer. And that's one of the reasons that they target apartments. Another reason that millennials target apartments and things that they rent is because they want more flexibility in their lives. Anybody who's owned a home knows that sometimes it's not easy or quick to sell your home. So millennials, they'll go work in, say, Des Moines for a year and decide, hey, Des Moines was cool, but now I want to go check out Austin.
That's right.
So they'll pick up and move to Austin. Jobs are becoming more remote. With COVID, it's just going to accelerate that. So the ability to telework is increasing. Millennials, we're seeing, will take lower salary for higher quality of life. So if they have the opportunity to work for less, but have the ability to telework from wherever they want, they will take that over a higher paying job that pigeonholes them to a location. So again, they migrate around. So that's one of the reasons for millennials in the rental space. And then there's baby boomers. Baby boomers are reaching that age where they're going to downsize. A lot of them have already started. And then at the same time, when they look to downsize, a lot of times they don't want the care and maintenance that comes with home ownership. So they're looking to offload that on somebody else. So they're looking at rental properties. And then at the same time, a lot of these baby boomers have kids or grandkids that hit that millennial target, and they're wanting to be around them. So they are going to the areas where the millennials are as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's kind of an interesting crossroads.
Yeah, and the baby boomers, what was interesting, I remember taking a class when we start getting into feasibility studies, when we start studying the demographics and census. What was really interesting about the baby boomers is I think the average age people were living to, I don't know, 65, 72. But these baby boomers are living much longer now due to hospitals, medication, educational, eating. And so they're living longer. And so, as you said, they need more spacing. And that's why you hear a lot of people wanting to get into assisted living or senior housing as well. So yeah, without a doubt. So you know the Carolinas because you're a Carolina kid, and there's a lot of what we call halfbackers all running around there. How'd you get to know the other markets after you identified those as well?
Some of them I've traveled to. Some of them I will travel to. Another way that I tend to do I look at a lot of city data. There's a couple of groups in the that are popular online for doing really, really in-depth quality research on multiple markets around the country. I follow those groups. I listen to podcasts by those guys. And then the other way is just kind of some cold calling, if you will. I connect with brokers in the area. I'll connect with other syndicators in the area, just to network and talk about the spots. For instance, yesterday I was looking at 3 properties in Memphis, Tennessee, and I probably spent an hour and a half on the phone with a broker in Memphis, just asking him about the different parts of Memphis, the difference between this area over by the river here versus the downtown area in this particular spot. And then specifically talking to him about those 3 properties. And I learned a lot about Memphis that I didn't already know. I had a pretty good understanding of who's moving there, why they're moving there, the jobs that are coming in there, Amazon, Nike, FedEx,
Oh, wow.
obviously. Amazon's investing in a huge facility there, which makes some sense when, you start to think about it, since FedEx has such a huge location there. And then, doing that kind of research, digging in and talking to people who live in those areas, that's just multiple ways to kind of get to know the market that I use.
Hey, so one of my favorite questions for all these real estate guys that are out there, what do you enjoy most about this MF? No, I mean, no. What do you enjoy most about multifamilies, man?
Personally, having had single family rentals and some of the other things that I've done, it's the idea of the scalability of it all. The fact that it's treated like a business. One of the things I noticed with single family homes is I'm largely dependent upon what the guy down the street sold his house for.
Yes.
And good and bad, right? But I can't control that as much. I don't have as much input into what my property is worth. One of the things I like about multifamily is the idea that you can force appreciation, you can add value, and that the lenders look at it as a business. If single family homes, I'm running it like a business, but a lender doesn't view it as a business necessarily. Until you start to get into the portfolio loans, things like that.
That's right.
But with multifamily, it is treated like a business above a certain amount of doors, and there's things I can do. Hey, $10 here, $50 there, across 50 doors, and you multiply that, and all of a sudden you've added significant value to a single property. So I like that scalability. one of the things, Mike, you talk about a lot, I used to see you talk about on a few different forums, and part of what dawned on me, with the single family rentals was just how difficult maintenance was across multiple properties, as opposed to, hey, I could have one building that might have 40 doors in it, and I only got to take care of one set of shingles. I don't have to take care of 40 different structures and roofs and things like that. So it's that whole concept of it is it's just the ability to scale and then be able to, force appreciation and scale that appreciation as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's some simple things like just raising the rents. I mean, a simple one I like to share all the time. Like you got 100 units and you increase the rent by just $50. So $50 a month on 100 units creates $5,000 more a month in passive income, which they'll annually is what, 60,000? Is that right? 60,000 in income, and you do that at a 7 or 8 cap, you just created 750,000 more dollars in value. That's simple.
Right.
So yeah, no, I love the game. I don't need that. I don't need that. So last question here. Yeah, the goals. Yeah, I guess I did need my sheet. What are your long-term goals in real estate? Where you see yourself in the next 5-10 years?
Long-term goals is, I want to add, I have a kind of a personal goal of adding 1,000 doors inside the next 5 years.
Nice.
And then one of my personal goals of what I would like to do, and I've had some people try to talk me out of this, so I'll let you try if you want. I actually have a long-term goal. I'd like to do at least one ground-up development.
I'm not gonna talk you out of that.
Yeah, I would love to do a ground-up development, because one of the things I do love, and this comes back from my technology days, and I used to go build things with my dad. Is I like coming up with an idea. I like executing on the plan, and then I like to see it happen. And I really want to do a ground-up development at some point. Probably in the multifamily space.
Well, if you do one, you're going to end up doing two, and if you do two, you'll do a third one, and it just keeps rolling. So, just know what you're asking for, man. All right.
Yeah. So we'll see. Hey, well, the good news is I already got 2 spots identified where I might want to do it. So maybe I do the one, and then I got the second one ready to go. Right.
No, I'm excited. Actually, man, I kind of push away from developments because I like buying existing. Now, without a doubt, when developments, you're creating value, and it's big wins. You get big margins on these developments when you develop it, because you'll have a REIT or one of these people that only need a 4 cap, right? And they'll pay a premium for that. And I love that. But always wanted to, I'm kind of a cheap guy in a way. I wanted me a beach house, but I was like, man, somebody need to pay for that. And I ain't talking about my cash flow. So then I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna build me a hotel, and like an Airbnb, apartment, condo, hybrid. And so we've actually located one spot in Florida, and there's potential deal in Sarasota downtown. So I'm with you, man. I'm not a big developer, but the opportunity comes, the numbers make sense, you go for
it. Yeah, I'm with you. I'm 100% into that.
Well, look, man, I congratulate you on your success. I mean, you've really been killing. You've been out finding deals. You've been meeting investors. Quite some
big wins.
We call them big wheels, all on just your due diligence and your effort, man. So I know there's some success coming right around the corner, additional success that you haven't been experienced. And so we're excited for you. Before we get out of there, is there anything else you want to say to the listeners here?
Hey, just you know, you hit on it a little bit earlier. You know, don't let a setback keep you down. It would have been it would have been real easy just to walk away and forget about it in 2008, 2009. But you know, don't let something like that keep you down. Just fix it, learn from it, and move on. I don't look at it as a failure. I look at it as a learning lesson.
That's right. That's right. So look, if our listeners want to learn more about you, about the Harvest Property Group, where can they reach you at?
So they can reach me on my website would be the easiest place, harvestpg.com, or connect with me on LinkedIn at any time.
All right, man. Well, thanks, Tim. Everybody, this is Tim Vest, one of the greatest students alive now. He's the master of his destination now, my friends. All right. So, hey, just remember, as we say, may God bless you. May God keep you, and may He bless you beyond your belief, but not your capacity. And remember, you're one big deal away. Everybody, Tim Vest, see ya.
Thanks, Mike.